Hi, this is Miss Feldman Tentori, and this screencast will take you through the website overview, goals, and cultural dimension for your assignment. So this is for the 2018 eBusiness class. If you take a look at your schedule in the syllabus, this is referred to as the online lecture 3 and 4 combined. So this is what we will go through quickly in this lecture. Very quick recap. We started the semester by looking at what eBusiness is, and you are doing a bit of research on this yourself. We've given you a few tips, and the Google online course, of course, covers a lot of this. But why use eBusiness? This is one model that shows a few of the aspects that are related. Ms. Moore did some live lectures last week, as well as an online lecture going through some of the ICT trends. Here is one source which shows 12 disruptive technologies. You might have looked into some others as well. And this is showing the types of things that are affecting businesses and ICT. We've given you an outline on how to use the business model canvas, which is an analysis tool for your case study in assignment 1, as well as personas. Impact of culture. As business students, international business students, you should realize that culture has a huge impact. We are not going to give you too many specific ways of analyzing culture because there's so many different ways that you can approach it. But to give you a starting point for your assignment when you're analysing the impact of culture in both the overview of the business and also in your target market analysis, there are, of course, the absolute basics of which country is the business in, which country are the customers in, what language do they use, and even the culture of using ICT. Wherever you're analysing your business, is it normal to have a website? Is the web access easy? Are people using mobile phones? What the type of level of mobile phone ownership, that kind of thing. So that's where you can look at culture. Remember, when you're doing your own research, have a bibliography or a reference list so that we know where you're getting your information as well. But there's no real one way that you should be analysing culture. We'll leave that up to you. Remember also that social media has a huge impact. It is one aspect of ICT, and that in itself is a culture. The fact that in different countries, different people use various social media tools and platforms, so that is one idea for your assignment as well. Moving on to websites. Now, a website is a huge central part of the ICT that a company may be using. So this is one video you can go watch on YouTube if you like, for the history of the internet. But very briefly, with websites, they started out not all that long ago as just a static, or what's called HTML. And if you wanted a website and you're a business, you had to go and find a special firm that would hand code your website, and it was very expensive. Then in the 2000s, blogs and databases and Blogger and WordPress and all this kind of thing started coming out, and it became a lot easier for a business to build a website. So think about the impact of that. That's only in the last 2 decades, really, or less, that businesses have been able to just create their own website at very minimal cost and with minimal skills. Now it's very common to use a content management system. I run quite a few of my own websites and have done some in the past for clients. But we'd like you to think about the impact that being able to build your own website or get quite a cheap website built has, and that sometimes it's not as quick and easy as you may realize. I've spent many hours building my own websites for my business Zesty, for example, and still, even literally right now, I need to spend quite a few more hours because I need to move to a different host, and things have gotten a lot more complicated and expensive on some aspects, but on others it's also easy to just make changes to my own website. So that's the type of thing that you might want to analyze when you're looking at your case study business. Net neutrality is another, just a tip that you may like to go and look into. There's a video that we can put the link up for. A term, Web 2.0, was first coined in 1999, but the central concept of this is that customers often expect businesses online to be two-way. So to have user-generated content, engagement, usability, be social, and have two-way conversations. Once upon a time, when I first started looking at and working with websites, they were really just an online brochure, but now there's a lot more to them than that. This is a blog post I wrote for my own clients a few years ago, and I'm just sharing it here because if you've never worked with websites before, it can be a little hard to get your head around what it means to a business to have a website. And there's different aspects that you need to be considering, all of which often cost time and money. So I've put it into a pyramid. There's many other articles I'm sure you can find online, but these are the parts of a website that I'll talk through with you. This will be even more relevant when you start to build a website in Assignment 2, but it's still good for you to know in Assignment 1 when you're analysing a business's ICT use and potentially parts of their website. So firstly, they will need hosting. This is where your website lives on a server. It's kind of like a block of land your house is built on, is one way I can explain it. There's a lot of different options and packages, but it is where your website lives online. Backups are a security measure to make sure that your website is okay if it gets hacked, like mine did a couple of years ago. And now some hosts are building that into the package, but others it's not, so you need to know about that. And it's like a kind of insurance or security system. What's called the backend and the database. If you continue with the house comparison, it's a bit like what's going on behind the walls and the roof. You don't really see it, but it's important to the foundations. So the backend is the website filing system, like how everything is organized, and the database is the package of website files. You won't have a lot to do with this, but for whoever's building your website, it's good to know that it's there. Then you have your URL and email address, which you will of course be familiar with because it's like a physical street address. This is where people find you online. So for my business, it's zesty.com. And this is where you start getting the more professional email addresses. So instead of, say, a Gmail account, you need a URL, a unique record locator, to be able to set up a business email like that. Then you have the templates and web design. A lot more on this in Assignment 2 and Block 2, but it's just to make your website look pretty. You can do it yourself, or there's tools where you can create graphics. It's becoming easier and easier. Then there's the front end, or the part of the content management system, where it's a bit like using Word, for example, where you're typing in your content, and it's a bit more user-friendly than looking at the database side of things. Widgets and plugins I've compared here to furniture, but it's things to make your website look pretty, just like you put things in your house to make it look nice. When you're using a free site, this is fairly limited, but still sufficient, and when you pay for the more expensive, more customizable websites, then you can have a lot more control over this. Then there's the content. So your content adds a unique personality to your site, and this is where the Google Digital Garage will tell you a lot more with SEO and keywords and categories, but this is what you put on your site, the content, the images, the text. Social media is kind of like having a housewarming party once you've built your website or your house, but it's connecting to social channels. And blogging is a more regular way of adding content to your site. Blogs versus websites, these two have merged a lot in the last few years. I'm not going to go into too much depth now, but just keep in mind that a website may have a blog, and in fact I think good websites should. And these days blogs look a lot like websites. So in the past they're quite separate, now they're often quite quite merged. Remember that a website is built for a reason. Why would a business have a website? So they need to set goals. You'll be specifically doing this yourself in assignment 2, but in assignment 1, think about why did your case study business create a website in the first place and what are their goals? Websites are built on different platforms. WordPress is one of my favorite and the most popular, but there's plenty of others. And we said before that building a website, there's either the coders, I have no clue on how to do that side of things, and then there's the CMS, which is the content management system, which I'm very familiar with. I love WordPress. It's free and open source. Here it says 20% of the web now. It's moving towards the 30%. There are 2 different types of WordPress. There's WordPress.com, which is a hosting package available now as well, and WordPress.org used to be the system that you needed to find a host for, but these are now becoming more merged as well. There's e-commerce, so you may choose to sell on your website or just direct people back to an actual bricks and mortar store or like a restaurant, for example. There are many ways to analyze websites in ICT. For example, this website, I haven't checked it recently, but HubSpot used to offer this to analyze how strong a website was. Google have a test your mobile speed. So they're just a few ideas for your assignment. Alternatives to a business really need a website. This is something you might like to cover in your report. Some businesses say, oh, I've got a blog, why do I need a website? Or I've got a Facebook page or an app. So I suggest you consider the pros and cons for each. But ultimately, I think that every business should have a website. It should be the hub of all online activity, and that social media and apps are connected to that. Sometimes you may have issues, like if you haven't set up your site correctly like I didn't a few years ago, you may get hacked. But now the businesses like WordPress are offering even more secure website packages, but they cost a little more. So you need to do a financial analysis. What does a website cost? We expect you to do some research here, but here's a starting point. You're doing an ICT analysis in your assignment, and remember that a website isn't necessarily the only ICT that a business will be using, but here's a starting point. So hosting for a very small business used to be free, but that means that you would have, for example, in the headline .wordpress.com. So think about whether your business would want that. When you get bigger and scale, so with the scalability, and you're going to want to have, for example, not zesty.wordpress.com, but zesty.com, then you start to need to pay for hosting. You need to start to get your own email addresses, and big businesses pay thousands per month for this. Backups, again, here I've got free, but remember that you have to pay staff to use their time to look into this and even learn this. So very small businesses, I would be very careful with the word free and look into this, but technically you can find free options, but remember that it takes time. And then once you get into a mid-sized or a big business, usually they will hire an IT service to do this for them. So there's a cost involved with that. You also need to buy your URL and email. You may buy templates. You may get web designers to work for you. So that's where the costs start coming in. So in a financial analysis, you've got to think about the benefits as well. How much is a business using on their ICT, and how do they earn that back? So we'll go into more detail in block 2, but if you want to look at some finances for assignment 1, here's just a couple of starting places for researching the ICT costs. You need to apply it to a case study. So here's one we've done in previous years. We've done the Hague Online and the Feel at Home in the Hague Fair. So this is a look at their websites. If you do not know the exact costs and the business owners don't share it with you, that's fine. You can just ask them, for example, do you pay for your hosting? Could you tell me what kind of hosting service you use, for example, and then do the research yourself. Or the business owner may tell you exactly how much they're paying a month. With your assignments and next block, as I said, we'll go into more detail. Make sure that you read the assignment text carefully to see what we expect of you, and I've also done a walkthrough video, and finally come along to the workshops. So I hope that helps you a little bit further with the ICT analysis, thinking about website structure, website goals, cultural dimensions I've not talked a lot through, but I've given you some tips about where to get started with that. Good luck. Hope that helps, and we look forward to seeing you face to face in the workshops. And remember to keep following the Google Online digital workshop as well. That will give you plenty of information. Good luck.